Welcome to episode 23 of the Wheelhouse. I am Andrew O, and it is July 1st, also known as the first day of July. But for you, the earliest you could be hearing this is July 6th, I believe, which, by that time, I will be on a boat in the Atlantic Ocean on its way back to the East Coast, because tomorrow, for me, I am leaving for a cruise. Very first cruise, very excited. Also, very scared, percentage-wise, a little bit more scared, because, Titanic and all that, but, there's still that excitement there, so, while I'm going, so I guess I've accepted my fate. There's nothing much I can do at this point. But yeah, leaving, to Bermuda, that should be fun, hopefully. When I get back, of course, I'll talk all about it, unless I'm dead, which then, sorry. And yeah, it's July 2016. I forgot a few days ago. I forgot what year it was. That's not too bad. I mean, there's worse things to forget, like your name, or if anybody loves you. But all I forgot was if it was 2016 or 2017. Don't know why it happened, but I got confused. So I went to ask all my family members, my parents and my two sisters. I went up to them. I said, "Hey, is it 2016 or 2017?" They just looked at me and they didn't even say anything. They didn't say like, "Oh, you're just kidding," or are you serious? They just looked at me, gave me a look, and just said nothing. I mean, I guess they don't take me seriously, as the only explanation. So I had to actually look up myself what year it was, and now I know it's 2016. But still, that kind of bothered me. Stick with me. Why didn't they tell me? But what they do know about July is that it's the month of my birthday. It's actually July 9th. I also think they know by this time that I don't really care for birthday celebrations. I never understood the point. I mean, what are you celebrating? That pretty much you lived another 365 days, which to me isn't a great feat. Growing up in typical middle class American suburbia, yeah, it's not that hard to do. I mean, if I was living in like 13th century Europe, having to deal with, people trying to kill each other and also the Black Death, and I make it another year, that is a momentous occasion to be celebrated. Right now, I don't think I do that much. That's why I never understood the idea of birthday gifts. Again, you're getting hundreds of dollars or doodads or whatnot for living another year. I mean, you could just be sitting in your room, just eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom, and your only really daily activity is breathing, and you just do that for a while, and then people give you stuff. Never got the point. But the one thing that I always thought about that intrigued me about birthdays is the fact that I had never had a birthday during the school year, during grade school growing up. And, I'm sure different schools do different things. I mean, just jumping from elementary, middle, high school, different things like, I guess, homeroom teachers got a list of whose birthday it was. So, in the morning, everyone would be like, "Oh, it's this person's birthday." Everyone say happy birthday and whatnot. And, very enthusiastic friends would bring balloons and presents and maybe even full-fledged, mini class parties and whatnot. Never got anything like that. I've got to admit, felt a little left out. I'm moved past that point. Actually, I haven't because I'm bringing it up now. But, yeah, the plight of the summer birthday and not being able to enjoy it at school. All you get nowadays are a little happy birthday on your Facebook wall, which they're okay. I mean, usually it's just happy birthday, the H in happy and the B in birthday capitalized and an exclamation point. So it is what it is. I never write happy birthday in people's Facebook wall because, don't know who to do it for or leave out. Because if you pick, someone's going to feel left out. Well, at least that's how I feel. So it's either you say happy birthday to everyone, even that Facebook friend who doesn't have a profile picture so you don't remember what they look like, or even if they are your friend. You got to do that, or you just do no one. So it's the same, playing field. And that's what I do. Never do that. But the one thing of note that I've done this past week is I went into the city with my friend Ethan. Took the light rail to go see the film The Lobster at the Charles Theater, which is a little art theater in Baltimore. And man, the city, a lot of homeless people and junkies, which, yeah, I don't get out to the city much, so every time I do, it's still a shock to me. Gave some change to one lady who told me to help out a sister, quote, and I did. Gave her some money. But there's so many. And yeah, I guess on one side I'm glad that it still bothers me. I just kind of jumping ahead, but there's this one bit in Louie, the show I'm going to be talking about. How Louie talks about how, had a friend from the country brought into New York City. And the first homeless person she saw, she started freaking out like, ooh, how did this happen? What can I do to help? Blah, blah, blah. And then the old timers are like, what are you doing? Get away. like it's normal to not care for other people. So, it is still shocking to me, I guess. But the thing of note is the film Lobster, which is good. It's a good film. Looks very beautiful. I love the premise. The dystopian world is very unique and original. But it kind of falls into the expected artsy-fartsy film trappings. Very deadpan acting, which was characteristic and fit well in the film world, but became kind of dull halfway through. And also, because of that, sort of, the film lacked any sort of emotional punch. The music, it was a string quartet doing their artsy-fartsy thing. That was nice for a bit, and then they started playing the same sort of riffs over and over. Got dull. And yeah, the film does kind of drag on the last act, because it kind of falls into the same sort of rhythm. But I think there's a lot of cool stuff there, and thematically there's a lot to dig in. There's a lot of stuff underneath the surface. But that whole experience in general, has inspired me to get out into the city more. I think I may have mentioned this, but I'm saying it again because I want to make sure I do this. Is when I get back to Dallas, maybe a Friday or a Saturday, make an effort every morning to take the public transportation, go out into the city, just wander around, maybe have some things planned out, but get out there, walk around, familiarize myself with the world that I live in. That's kind of important, I would think. But what's important now is for you to know about how the show works. Every week, there is a recommendation of a piece of media, a book, a movie, an album, a video game, what have you. That week, I, or friends, if I have them, go out, experience those things, come back, and then review it. And last week, this guy named Quinn, you may have heard of him, probably not, has recommended a TV show that I watched, and I will be reviewing right now. It is, like I mentioned before, Louie. Maybe on its 5th season right now or something. But I watched the first season. It's a fictionalized version of Louis C.K. as he performs stand-up comedy, raises his daughters, fails at dating, and struggles with everything else life has to throw at him. Congrats, Quinn. You've got me to watch my first full season of a TV show ever. Again, I don't intentionally avoid watching TV. Just don't have time between my primary hobbies, film, video games, music, podcasts, books. I say primary, but those are all the things that I love to do. Throwing in TV shows into that mix is just too much. So, like Game of Thrones. I'm sure I would love Game of Thrones to death if I watched it. Don't got time for that. Sorry. So, let's begin at the beginning with the pilot, also known as the first episode. Also known as the first time you hear that dope theme song. Man, that song's so awesome. Very soulful, energetic, upbeat. But those lyrics, very deep, meaningful. They go something like, Louie, 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 Louie. Louie, 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 Lua. Perfect. You couldn't make a better theme song for this show. But unfortunately, after that, the first episode is pretty bad. The acting is very stilted. Camera work is second rate. And the lighting, pretty egregious. Honestly, this isn't a point of bragging, but at my filmmaking level, I could make it look like that. And even then, it's like, doesn't look very good. But what is sort of established at the first episode is sort of the form of the show. And that is something noteworthy because that is something that generally works. It's an excellent format where, there's some real life experiences that Louie goes through, but they're interspersed with his stand-up routine. And more often than not, there's some comparison there. And yeah, that's pretty much how the rest of the show goes. And yeah, starting from episode 2, it's so much better right off the bat. It begins with the poker scene. You have Louie with friends who are also comedians. And you could tell right from that one scene, better acting and dialogue. There's some smooth handheld camera work and a lot better framing on characters. The lighting is generally softer, so it looks more professional. And then the pacing, it changes. It's a lot more varied and unique. After the poker scene, it goes into this plot of Louie thinking about this girl from, I guess, middle school-ish named Tammy, and then eventually he goes and meets her in real life. And the use of flashbacks and a lack of dialogue in the present day. It makes the scenes slower and a lot more thoughtful and introspective. And yeah, it even gets better from there. As the season progresses, the show improves. The acting's more nuanced and emotional in the bigger moments. One of my favorite characters, it's a character of Pamela, who sort of fits in the world perfectly, plays off Louie really well. Also, the interactions between characters is more naturalistic, especially when it gets to the real life drama. For example, one of my favorite episodes, episode 7, is when Louie's mom visits him and his brother. And I guess the main plot point there is that she reveals he's a lesbian. Of course, that creates a lot of problems and tension. The drama is so good. The acting is stellar. These are real human problems. And what I love a lot is that there's really no resolution. It's like, hey, this thing happened. And yeah, it just happened. The writing gets so much better. Also, a lot of experimentation. There's sometimes a lot of surreal imagery or sequences. In episode 8, Louie gets high with his neighbor, and some wacky stuff happens, especially with editing and whatnot. Episode 10, he visits a dentist, and then through the influence of some dentist drugs, finds himself in the desert and meets Osama bin Laden. Yeah, pretty funny. Another aspect of the show I love. Consistently introduces great characters. You can't neglect mentioning Ricky Gervais as the hysterical doctor who's just this wild ball breaker to Louie, pretty much always telling him he has AIDS and cancer. Never gets old. And yeah, a lot of great characters, from rapey dentists to depressed babysitters and a slew of wacky love interests. Perfect comparison. It's funny that I just read this, but Catch-22, a lot of similarity there in how, oddball a lot of these characters are. And I'll get to this a little bit later, but how Louie is sort of the proxy for us to experience this world. And it is a comment on the sort of role of the comedian on a larger basis. But actually, I'll talk about that right now. What I love about Louie the most is how it sort of serves as a deconstruction of comedic form. I mean, I love comedy. I love thinking about comedy, being funny, and just sort of thinking about, why comedy even exists, how it functions, what purpose it serves. And for the show, there is, an easy parallel with the relationship between the stand-up material and sort of the real life experience we see. On a base level, like, it's something like one time in a stand-up routine, Louie talks about, how we have a sense of entitlement, and then the next thing we see is him at an airport, and there's a guy being very mad because he feels like he's entitled. But on a more conceptual level, I think this is a big point of the show a lot, a lot of his material is about sort of commenting on sex and dating in the modern era. And a lot of the show is sort of seeing that play out. But it's not like literal, like, oh, I met this one girl and this crazy stuff happened, and you see in real life. It's a lot more general, and it leaves a lot for you to sort of take in and then sort of reflect on how it exists in the world today. But this Louie is at its best with the serious drama because, classic comedy formula, comedy equals tragedy plus time. I think good comedy is always rooted in truth. That if you could find something universal that everyone can sort of relate to, that's what sort of makes it funny to a lot of people because it resonates with them. For example, like with Louie dealing with his mother, or like with one of the later episodes about how we see him growing up, being raised, I assume the Catholic Church, and how that also has affected his outlook on life, and again, on the base level, his comic material. And yeah, there is also the notion that comics are generally a cynical and depressed lot. And that, like Yossarian in Catch-22, they're sort of in an insane world. They're like a level of insane that makes them sane, that everyone else could sort of see they're sort of not, they could, the entire world sees them as not thinking straight and not, being held to the status quo. But in a way, they're sort of able to examine the world as it is and get to really the truth of things. And the only way that they're able to present that to us and for us to sort of understand in a universal way are jokes. Episode 13, the last episode, is my favorite because it sort of wraps up that idea in a very poignant way. Louie, after, leaving his daughters with the babysitter, goes out at the babysitter's behest, like, hey, you need to get out there and not die alone. So go out there and do stuff. He goes out to, some dance clubs, tries to meet young girls and whatnot, but he's completely out of his element, and he's wandering the street all lost and ends up passing by this small, comedy club and talks to the guy outside. It's like, yeah, there's only like 10 people in there or something. And Louie's like, you know what? I want to go in and, do like 5 minutes. And it's really poignant because, that's where he's in his element. That's where he feels comfortable. And it reminded me of sort of the myth of Sisyphus, how, him and I guess comics in general are sort of doomed to bear the burden of the world and sort of have to send it through their comedic lens for us to understand and also laugh at. And, despite failing at dating, trying to deal with life, he's always, brought back to comedy. And also what we see at the very end is also caring for his daughters. And what I also love is that a lot of times there's really no stated point, no agenda that he's trying to get across. It's never really political. It's all, hey, this is life. These things happen. Here's some jokes about it to help you understand it better from my point of view. I'm Louie. That's pretty much the whole show. And it just works so beautifully. And yeah, I really love to see the progression of the show, episode to episode. Like I mentioned, all the things get better. And just building on that universal theme. Because that's something that, speaks to me a lot, is sort of comedic form and the purpose it serves. And I think it does a great job of balancing comedy and tragedy, like Catch-22, with the great cast of characters and great writing all around. Really great. Last, random comments. 1, dialogue actually technically can, on a technical level, can't sound distorted at times. I don't know if it's because they're recorded poorly, like clipping, or if it was processed too much, but did notice that quite a few times. 2, there's an old Jewish lady in episode 6 who's seen in a convenience store haggling with the cashier guy. Realized, if you watch American Splendor, the film we talked about, she's the exact same Jewish lady that Harvey Picard stands behind in the grocery store who was haggling at prices. I mean, I guess she's typecast in that role, but I mean, she does a pretty good job at it. But I don't know, it's just funny to see her in the exact same role as in American Splendor. I like to imagine it's the exact same, actual character in the world. Also, number 3, the therapy skits. There were maybe 3 or 4 of them scattered over a few episodes. Amazing. I mean, they're 15-second inclusive, jokes that just perfectly typified the experience of therapy. From like an outsider point of view, joking about it, hearing about it, like so funny. Lastly, there are only a few recurring characters through the season, like Louie, his brother, Pamela, his daughters. But I would very much like to see more recurring characters in the further seasons if I should watch them, and also longer narratives, like stories that sort of follow through multiple episodes. I think I've seen Louie's writing improve to the point where, yeah, he could definitely pull that off, and very well. So I would love to see that. Maybe there are in the later seasons. I just don't know yet because I haven't seen them, but that would be great. If not, I'm sure he would still do great coming up with 22-minute episodes because they feel just so good, with the whole real life experience with the comedy and the bookends usually. I don't know. There's something about that just feels very, very right. And this show is very, very good. So, enough about me rambling about Louie and other things. Time to get to the part where I have another person on. I'm here with Jacob Estrada for another edition of Who is Bruce Springsteen. I think we're officially past the halfway mark. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I feel like it's gone by pretty fast, actually. Like, it feels like just, 2 weeks ago, I listened to Miles Davis, but it was actually like 7 weeks ago.
Yeah. Still sticks with you, I guess. Or flashbacks. Whichever it is. But
yeah, it's been pretty fast.
We're going to talk about Miles Davis today. We're talking about The Dark Side of the Moon, the progressive rock album by Pink Floyd. I don't know about you, but I had a great time going back and listening to it again. But people don't really care what I had to think right now. Jacob, what did you think about Dark Side of the Moon?
In short, I honestly loved it.
Whoa! Loved it. High praise.
Yeah, so I didn't understand what you meant when you were saying listen to it all in one setting because, it's kind of like one song.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you meant that literally because I'd listened to a few concept albums before, or like the songs play into a story arc, and each one takes place after the last.
Yeah.
But I'd never listened to a concept album before where all the songs were actually one long piece of music.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was listening to this in the car while driving, and I remember the first song just ended, and then the second one started, and it sounded like it picked up like on the exact melody where the last one left off. And I was like, oh wow, that was unexpected.
Yeah. It's smooth.
Yeah, I know that. Right, so right away it had won me over. But I really loved the creativity in that it was one long piece of music. But I also really loved how thoughtful and personal all of the lyrics were.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly like let's see, what's it called? Hold on. Us and Them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a song about isolation and depression, I think, and just listening to the lyrics and then and like reading them over and over again. It's just the songs on this album are ones you can listen to multiple times and just contemplate on the lyrics a lot. And so I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I think the instrumentation kind of helps that too. It is sort of more moody and at times kind of slow and kind of swells, and it is sort of in that same sort of theme of whatever the song is about. So there's a lot to dig in.
And with this album, I found myself even enjoying the instrumentals, the purely instrumental songs, because I always felt like they had tied into the songs before and after, like they always created an appropriate mood between those songs. I don't remember which song it was. Hold on, let me look at the track listing. Yeah, I think it was On the Run an instrumental.
Yeah, On the Run it's mostly like instrumentals and then like different like vocals. like audio clips of people speaking
Yeah.
and like other sound effects, but no like melody and like lyrics, you know?
Yeah, so just listening to that one, even though there were no lyrics, it created this like visual in my mind, um, of like somebody running away, of like, of like some kind of someone trying to escape and on this like crazy journey. So I felt
Yeah.
like the instrumentals, even though there were no lyrics, they were very good at generating imagery,
Yeah, and
if that
with
makes
that
sense.
song, I believe the way they created that effects was they had like this sequencer, and they would play like something like 8 notes on it, and then they were using this machine. They could like speed it up, and that's like the main sort of tone on or in On the Run. It's like really like rapid synthesizer sound
Yeah.
that does give it that tension. And what the song is really about is sort of the pressure of being sort of young, these guys, and also on the road touring. And I think Roger Waters specifically said it's for him about the anxiety for flying. And if you go back, there are some like airport sounds towards the end also. So again, it all builds that same theme, with the audio clip sound effects and with the music as a whole.
Yeah, and another thing, I didn't catch this when I was listening to it. I only caught this after I read the Wikipedia description. But on each side of the album, the 5 songs are supposed to reflect like 5 different stages of life. And then I went back and I looked at the titles. And like the first one on side one is like "Speak to Me," and the fifth one is "Great Gig in the Sky." And I was like, "Oh crap, I didn't even notice that."
Yeah.
And
Speak to Me, Breathe, On the Run, Time,
yeah,
especially.
yeah,
And then
no,
Great Gig in the
seriously.
Sky, which is pretty much just about dying. So,
Yeah, no, no, seriously. And so just like looking at all the different aspects of these albums, the instrumentals, the fact that it's all one giant piece of music, the different themes, and the fact that each song reflects like a different stage of life. Just looking at all the different ways that all these aspects tie together into the final product is just it's just like really incredible.
yeah. Main question, is this now your favorite?
Um, no, but it's up there. It's up there. I would say my
Your
3 favorite
favorite's
albums.
Led Zeppelin, right?
Yeah, my favorite band is Led Zeppelin. I think my favorite album overall, like just individual album, was
Oh,
What's
right.
Going On.
Right. Okay, yeah.
But I'm gonna say so far, top 3 favorites definitely What's Going On, Led Zeppelin 4, and this one.
Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, definitely makes me want to listen to more Pink Floyd.
Yeah. Yeah, they still have a few really, really great albums. But now I can talk a little bit about this album, Dark Side of the Moon. Pink Floyd, their 8th album, released March 1st, 1973. You said before how you thought that the album was very thoughtful, and it's in a genre of music where that is one of the main points, is progressive rock. It was sort of a movement that started in the late 60s, and it was a move to try and make rock music sort of more artistic and more thoughtful. And this resulted in like just longer pieces, definitely more experimentation, which kind of manifested in sort of like sometimes orchestral arrangement and definitely thematically a lot more serious. But for Pink Floyd, sort of their main transitional point was in 1971 with their album Metal. It was a transitional point because they were sort of musically moving past the influence of Syd Barrett, who was one of the founding members of Pink Floyd, but he left in April 1968 because of mental health problems. And that's sort of something that all the remaining band members never forgot. I'm sure if you read a little bit about this album that
Yeah,
a couple of those couple of songs are yeah.
I caught the Syd Barrett stuff.
Yeah, a couple of the later songs touch on mental illness, and that's mainly inspired by him. I mean, one of their later albums, Wish You Were Here, is pretty much just about Syd Barrett, pretty much. Saying like, hey, we're making music, it's great and all, but still wish you could be part of the band. And that album's awesome too, Wish You Were Here. That's probably the next album you should go to if you want to listen to more Pink Floyd. Anyway, yeah, talking about prog rock being more thoughtful and long form composition. Metal, one of the songs on their Echoes, covered an entire side of the album. It was over 23 minutes long. Definitely no song as like singular song on here that's that long, but it definitely put them on the track to do something where, we have all the songs on Dark Side blending into one, so it feels like one, larger piece. After Metal, the band, they wanted to do something, a new album that was more grand and with a unified theme. The problem was that they were doing lots of touring in 71 and 72. So what they would do is that they would use their shows as sort of test beds to experiment the material for the album, both pre-existing songs and new songs that they were coming up with. And it sort of culminated in February 17th, 1972. Pink Floyd, they put on a performance for the press called Dark Side of the Moon, a piece for assorted lunatics, a sort of a prototype of the album. And then in May 1972 to January 1973 is when they actually sat down at the Abbey Road Studios and got going recording Dark Side of the Moon. They had on board studio engineer Alan Parsons, who was pivotal in the production. A lot of advanced production techniques for this album. For example, 16-track mixes, they're able to layer a lot more instruments and sound effects on top of each other, so you do get a lot more, dynamic and sort of moody sounds because they had more room to use. Effects loops, especially, I'm sure you notice on Money and Time. How does Money start? You hear them coins, and they turn into the beat.
No. I love
Super
that,
cool.
actually.
And then in Time, what do you hear? Got them clocks, and they also turn into the beat as well. Really cool. And also, as I also mentioned, the voice clips. I think it was Roger Waters who got these flashcards with questions on them, and he got people in the studio, friends and whatnot, and he showed them these questions, and then they would respond to them. And some of these were used sporadically throughout the album. Some of the biggest questions. When was the last time you were violent? Were you in the right? And then some of the responses to those questions were used in the music. And also can't neglect Storm Thorgerson, who designed the iconic cover. The band wanted something more simple and clean, but still kind of striking. Storm came up with a few designs. The band looked at them right away. They were like, that one. There's like no deliberation. They all just agreed. The prism was the way to go.
I recognized this cover image long before I ever knew what Pink Floyd was.
Mm-hmm. It's arguably the most recognizable album cover. But Dark Side of the Moon released, well received critically, commercially. This was the album that sort of propelled Pink Floyd, all the band members, into wealth. They sat very happy after that. And yeah, going back and listening to this album, yeah, I love it. Some of the most haunting and memorable soundscapes. But then just instrumentally also, you have some great guitar solos. You mentioned thematically, it's all very intriguing. My favorite song is actually Any Color You Like, which isn't generally people's favorites are Time and Money and stuff, but I really like that. It is just an instrumental, but I think it's just so perfectly constructed. The pacing is just so good. It's so intricate. Also notable for me, Great Gig in the Sky. You have Claire Torrey, who does who does the main vocals, but with no words. It's just singing, and it's super, super powerful. And this is one of the albums that I would love to get a time machine, go back in time, and experience listening to it again for the first time. Because, I'm very familiar with this album now, so there's nothing I feel like I could get new out of it. So listen to it and enjoy it, but man, in particular, the last two songs, Brain Damage and Eclipse, I don't know, it resonated with me. I got an emotional response from that. But I'm never going to have that again, because I've already listened to it. And there's I feel that about movies and books and games and stuff, but
no, I totally understand that.
Yeah. As far as music, I'm man, I'd love to just go back in time for an hour, just 1 hour, and just listen to it again with fresh ears. But yeah, this sounds pretty great. Any final thought, Jacob? Dark Side?
I've really loved listening to all these different albums for this segment. I'm discovering I'm discovering a lot of genres I wouldn't have gotten into before, and yeah, just how different this one is than all of the previous albums I've listened to is just really making me appreciate the experience. So yeah, I mean,
Well,
it's just really great.
that's the goal. So I guess it's succeeding. So
Yeah.
I'm happy about that. So, Jacob, this is a momentous occasion. Do you know what the next album we're talking about is?
Bruce Springsteen.
Yes! It's what this segment is named after. Who is Bruce Springsteen? Because we were talking at the dining hall. I don't know how we got to it. Oh, yeah, I went to a Bruce Springsteen concert, and I told you about that, and you were like, who's Bruce Springsteen? Couldn't forget you saying that. That's what sparked this entire
Yeah, I remember
segment.
you were like super offended by it.
Yeah.
And then you went and you told Sterling, and then Sterling just like shouted at me in the middle of the hallway, "How the fuck do you not know who Bruce Springsteen is?"
Well,
Oh my God, Jacob.
we have come. It is time. We are talking about the third album by the boss, Bruce Springsteen, Born to Run, released August 25th, 1975. He is the king of Heartland rock. Generally, all his music sort of showcases the lives of regular American Joe Schmoes. His lyrics about that are always very thoughtful and poetic. His E Street Band, his backing band, is very great, dynamic instrumentation. Bruce, very full and powerful vocals. This was his huge commercial breakthrough album. Generally considered his best and one of the best albums of all time. And I've got to say, I think I've listened to all his albums up to Tunnel of Love. And I never loved any of them. I always go like, yeah, I really like all these albums, but none of them really, sort of resonated with me and was like, oh, I love this. It's one of my favorites. And this is one that I definitely have not spent enough time listening. So I'm excited to go back and listen. I did read an article, I think Sterling might have sent it to me. I don't know how I got to it, but saying how there was this guy, the author saying how, he listened to Bruce Springsteen growing up, went to a couple concerts, but again, it never really resonated with him. But when he got older and was like a father, had kids and everything, that suddenly all Bruce Springsteen's music sort of became relatable. So maybe it's something where, I don't know, maybe it is an age issue. I don't really, that wasn't what my mind went to at first, but who knows? Maybe I'll listen to it again and I'll love it more than Dark Side of the Moon. Probably not, but we'll see. Get pumped, Jacob. We're here,
Yeah,
Bruce
I am.
Springsteen.
I was actually surprised you didn't say Bruce Springsteen till the end.
Well, we're going chronological by year of release, but I mean, that would be cool. Maybe if we have an extra week at the end, we'll do another Bruce Springsteen album just for kicks. But so, Born to Run, and you'll have a lot of time to dissect it because we're not going to be recording for another week and a half or something. So you don't sound pumped.
Oh, sorry. No, man.
Get pumped. Get pumped.
I'm pumped, man. I'm fucking pumped. No, I'm actually pretty eager to listen to Bruce Springsteen. I'm excited to check it out.
How funny would it be if you just hated it? That'd be awesome.
It would be that would be pretty ironic.
There's gotta be one album here that you go I don't really like. Well, I guess Kinda Blue was kind of like that, but
Yeah, well, I feel like I don't really get jazz yet. I feel like me listening to Kind of Blue was a little premature.
yeah, I know we decided to go chronological, but then I also knew that Kinda Blue would go first, and I was like, that's a really bad place to start. But oh well. But I'm looking forward to the possibility that you might hate one of these last 7 or so albums. That'd be fun to talk about. But who knows? You've generally liked everything so far. So
if I hate it, then it will in some way be your fault.
I guess. But
It's your podcast. Everything that happens is your fault.
sure. Okay. Well, that doesn't make me feel good. But yeah. Where do I go from there, Jacob? How do I end the segment? You end it for me.
Okay, Andrew?
Yeah.
Who's Bruce Springsteen?
Man, this... I'm too tired for this. Goodbye. So, lastly, before we wrap up this burrito of an episode, I don't know why I'm on this whole food analogy thing. Anyway, I gotta play one recommendation. It's another movie from a guy named Jake, and I'm gonna play that recording of him recommending it right now. I'm here with Jake, if that is your real name.
That was a terrible intro. Do that again.
I'm sorry. I'm here with Jake Moon, if that is your real name.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay.
Tonight I'll be reviewing... Oh, actually, I have to... Can we just redo this whole thing?
I'm here with Jake Moon. How are you?
I'm splendid, and I am delighted to be here.
I'm splendid too. This is like the first time we've done this.
Except for
fresh. It's nice and fresh.
Yes, this is also the third time we've attempted this intro.
No one knows. What have you got for me?
Well, tonight I'll be reviewing the 2005 Academy Award-nominated film Good Night and Good Luck. The film is a quasi-docudrama that follows Edward R. Murrow. He was a journalist and the host of a CBS TV program called See It Now. It was very similar to Dateline, I would say, in its following of in-depth analysis of news programs. Edward Murrow, who is played by David Strathairn, was the most renowned and one of the very few journalists who, in 1953, fought out against Joseph McCarthy and his wave of anti-communism. Throughout the film, he is constantly berating McCarthy, and he publishes multiple programs without the consent of the CBS head director, criticizing Senator McCarthy, and also accusing him of fabricating stories. That becomes a motif throughout the film of how honest is media and what sort of responsibility do they carry. Of course, as we all know, in the end, McCarthy collapses when it comes to light that he has essentially fabricated everything in his attempts to gain power. But Murrow was certainly the first to fight against it, and with an enemy in McCarthy who looked like Ted Cruz and had the trustworthiness of Joseph Stalin, had quite the enemy. Strathairn does an excellent job of portraying this character, although a minor criticism is that we do not really see any emotion from him. He is very straight-laced, and we only ever see him in his workplace, and even though that is a criticism, it kind of tells us about the sort of character he was. He very much cared about work, about his work, and about what journalism and what TV can do to America.
And if he doesn't show a lot of emotion, he can act as like a proxy for the audience to, be experiencing these things.
Yes, absolutely. There are a lot of moments where the audience is captivated by the drama and the sort of hair-raisiness that's going on, which is not something you'd expect from something about journalism and about politics. It's interesting, too, because David Strathairn is not exactly, a headliner. I mean, he's not unknown, but his supporting cast is full of stars. George Clooney is playing a co-producer. Actually, Clooney also wrote and directed the film, so it's fantastic.
I've heard of him.
Yes, I guess he's all right. And Robert Downey Jr. also plays an editor and a writer that works for CBS News and is sort of in the gang of Murrow.
Heard of him too.
Robert Downey Jr., he has pretty much the only personal story in the film. Him and co-actor Patricia Clarkson portray a married couple at CBS, which was illegal at the time. And what I thought was going to be a really juicy and interesting subplot just sort of fizzled out. I think they could have done a lot more. However, those are really the only problems I have with the entire film, just minor plot lines. The production it's outstanding, and I think that is what will catch the eye of most people. It's done in black and white, which normally is pretty cheesy and cliche, but the entire film, the music and the cinematography, and of course the era, it really fits. I have one question about the style. Earlier you mentioned that it's like a quasi-documentary.
Yes. And so is it kind of filmed in that way, like maybe some shaky cam stuff going on, or is it more like framed like a normal
There's a little bit of shaky camera, but there isn't... huge musical numbers going on in the background, and everything you see is filmed either at work surrounding Mora or even just between Robert Downey Jr. and Patricia Clarkson.
Cool.
The music is excellent. Etta James, the jazz singer, she
Love
does
Etta James,
everything.
yeah.
She's fantastic. She sings all of the parts. It's
Wow.
very much laid back and classy. But what I also enjoyed about the film is that they used real footage throughout it. They used
Archival footage.
yes,
Yeah.
archival footage of Joseph McCarthy. And actually, a criticism of the film from a lot of critics whenever it came out was that the actor who played McCarthy was too over the top, when it actually turned out to just be him. But also, they used actual clips from the original TV program, See It Now,
Nice.
and they were spliced into his portrayal in film, which, I mean, if you weren't absolutely looking for it and knew what the footage looked like before, you couldn't even tell. And another thing, too, is that you can see how they produced a journalism show back then. There's a lot of correspondence between Morrow and his producer, and he's hacking away at a typewriter and a switchboard in the background. And production and journalists and media people in general, I think, will particularly find it to be interesting. It may not be the Michael Bay or even Ocean's 11
May not
style.
be. I don't think it
Yes.
doesn't sound like it.
Thriller, edge of your seat, but it is very much a thought-provoking piece, and it's excellently done. I would never watch a film that was about this had it not been so beautifully done. But also, it makes us think a lot. The last line of the film is about TV, where if we don't stand up and do what is right and what needs to be said, and everything is just wires and lights in a box, and then it cuts to black. It's very much a stark and almost scary moment.
Especially if you watch it on a TV.
Of course. And even though it's set 63 years prior to today, the message and the overall theme, especially regarding media, is very, very much
Resonant.
Yes, resonant with what we have going on today. So if you have 99 minutes to spare and want to maybe be a little bit educated and certainly have a lot to think about before you go to bed, I highly recommend this film.
Well, I will have to spare 99 minutes because I have to watch and review this movie. And from your discussion, you're very passionate about this, so I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Thanks for the recommendation, Jake. I'll be watching that movie and hopefully enjoying it. That'll be in a while after I get back from my Atlantic excursion. And yeah, that's the end of episode 23. Good number 23. For various reasons that I don't know right now. But it just feels right. It's a good number. It feels like it's a good number. With that in mind, I don't know what you're going to do with that in your mind. Just keep it in there, and then maybe someday you'll need it. Anyway, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/wheelhousecast. Follow us on Twitter at wheelhousecast. Subscribe to our feed on iTunes, where you can also rate and review us. And also, we have an email address. It's wheelhousecast@gmail.com. If you want to recommend something, if you want to review something, if you want to send pictures of dogs water skiing on Mars, you can do that. I don't know if they exist. You might have to make it yourself. I would recommend not wasting time, but it's up to you. You can send it at the email address. And I think that is it. Witty rejoinder.